Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Condition, a podcast devoted to analyzing films and what makes a movie a movie. I am your host, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, a filmmaker, podcaster, and lover of cinema. Today, I am joined by Patrick Howell. They are a staff writer over at Drink in the Movies, and today they have selected Police Story. Hey, Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk about one of my personal favorites and to introduce you to Hong Kong Jackie Chan.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I told you off air, I have never seen anything from Hong Kong Jackie Chan. I only owed
Besides, of course,
huh?
Mr.
Mr.
Nice
Nice
Guy.
Guy. Yes, yes. I have back home a very old DVD, and I'm pretty sure it's still in my mom and dad's bedroom. It's Mr. Nice Guy, and I have no idea why they bought that. They have it, and I think one of these days I actually do want to revisit it, bro.
Yeah, but we can. I have a whole rant about that because I assume the Mr. Nice Guy that you have is the dub version, right? The English dub.
I have no idea. I don't remember. All I know is I know what the poster looks like, and that's the DVD I have. But look, Patrick is joining us today. He is one of my great friends. He is one of my mortal enemies in the High Flyer Radio League. He also is one of my coworkers, I guess, over at
Yeah,
Drink in the Movies. We both write for Drink in the Movies, and yeah, we're just two good pals here, right, man? I mean,
yeah.
Patrick kind of what's it called? Brought it up to my attention. He goes, "Hey, you had Anna on. When are you gonna have me on?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. I mean, we can get Patrick on." So I pushed somebody out for you, bro.
Well, I like to think I bought my way on.
I think you buy yourself on. Yes, Patrick
Yeah,
is also my one and only patron. Which, by the way,
that's right.
you don't have to be a patron to what's it called to be on this show, but it helps that Patrick gives me
Maybe you
this
should make it a tier.
huh.
Maybe you should make it a tier.
No, no, I can't do that. I think people can come on if they want. Look, people can come on if I wanted to come on, but you would have come on either way, even if you were my patron or not. You were my patron or not. But I mean, either way, yeah. Thanks, Patrick, for being my patron. I know you haven't watched the stalker video essay I made that I spent a lot of time on, but it'd be great if you watched that.
Okay,
I spent a
I'll get
lot of
off the show
time on
right
it.
now.
Yeah, man. I spent a lot of time on that, man. But yeah, Patrick is just a really good friend of mine. We met through drinking the movies, and we've been just kind of working through there. And he came on High Flyer Radio, and now, he's has not had the privilege of facing off against me, but he does want to be alongside the champ. Well, the former champ. Yeah,
Oh, well, I have to make my way up
yeah,
the card, and I know where to ride my coattails.
yeah. But you want to introduce yourself to them, like any other stuff I'm not mentioning, because this you are the first time you are coming on here, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I want to come on is because I just love talking about movies, and anywhere I can talk about movies with other people who love movies, I'm happy to.
Yep. Yeah, man. Uh, Patrick on Letterboxd has like so many freaking movies he's watched. Like it's crazy. Like the ones like and it's stuff that I've never heard about before. And I was like, okay, well, Pat. Well, thanks to Pat, I put something in my watch list now. Um,
It's a disease. I do not recommend watching as many movies as I do.
yeah,
It's bad. I'm not sleeping a lot.
yeah. You also have the instance where I've seen like there's a movie that like I'll go and you like love it, and I'll have like a completely different rating on it. Um,
That's fair.
or there's something that I really liked, and then you'll have like a 2 star on it, and I'll be like, okay. But then when I hear you talk about it, it's like, no, Patrick doesn't hate this movie. He just like he didn't like it that much. Like,
I I mean I feel like most movies are like fine. My wife always makes fun of me because
yeah,
whenever she asks me what how I feel about a movie, my usual response is it's fine. Which
okay,
I think is probably the default position of most movies. I
I,
don't I don't think I'm a hater or
no, I don't think you are either, bro. I don't think you're a hater. I think I'm kind of a hater sometimes, but
yeah. We'll
yeah.
talk about Top Gun Maverick one day.
Oh my God, yeah. Hope not. Hope we will never talk about that movie here.
Yeah, it'll ruin our
Yeah,
friendship.
yeah. Anna's kind of a hater too, though. But that's something else.
Yeah, Anna can hate what she hates.
Anna hates, man. I love though
Yeah.
that Anna finally realized that, like, what's it called? I don't have that clean streak on me now. What's it called? She'll see like, no, Raul, you put it at the you ranked this movie wrong, and I was like, I'm sorry, Hannah. I had to start. What's it called? Disappointing you soon. Like I couldn't. You were pretty okay with me. You're like, oh, Raul, that's pretty good taste, and then now I'm just starting to disappoint you. Yeah.
Do you have a movie in mind that I didn't like that you love?
I know that when I was going through the Decalogue, there were some that were like you rated it
Oh, okay.
significantly lower than I did.
Got
Um,
it.
but there was also some in Decalogue that you rated like significantly higher than I did as well. So,
Mm.
but there's some stuff I need to go back and look at it. But at least with this one, our rating isn't like completely different. I mean, what's it called? Like,
Oh, good. So you did like it. We haven't
yeah,
talked about whether or not you liked it yet.
yeah. Well, like I said, like we don't really concern ourselves with whether I like the movie here or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I liked it. I didn't think it was like amazing or anything. I really liked it though. But I really do want to buy that Eureka 4K set that's gonna come out, so that way I can actually
Right.
like sit down and like consume it on a big screen and like get to do reviews on this channel for it. But you know, if you wanted to hear my thoughts, there they are. I liked it, Pat. You picked a movie that I like, and
Great.
yeah,
I'm always. I don't know if you find this, but whenever people ask for recommendations of something, it's
yeah,
always kind of
yeah,
tough, or I get really insecure about it because I'm like,
yeah.
well, what if he doesn't like it, and what if he thinks badly on my taste if he doesn't like it,
Oh no,
which
no,
is no problem here, but
no. Of course not.
especially with people who like don't love movies the way or consume movies the way we consume movies,
Yeah,
it's always a hard proposition to be like, do you want to watch the Decalogues? I don't think.
yeah.
I
That's
don't
why.
think.
That's
Yeah.
why I don't think. That's why I don't recommend Stalker anymore. Like, what's it called? I
Right.
don't. I don't tell people to watch Stalker anymore. Like, and people when they ask me like, "Oh, Raul, what's your favorite movie of all time?" and I tell them, and there's like, "Oh, should I watch it?" Like, I honestly tell them like, "No, don't watch it." You know, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
recommend you watch it anymore. I'm not gonna recommend you watch Beautiful. I don't think you're gonna like Beautiful. Like, and
Yeah.
plus, if you don't, and I recommended you like highly recommend, it's gonna like I truly don't give a shit about whether people like the movies or not that I
Right.
like, but I know that like if it's somebody like really close to me who I like have opened myself by recommending you a movie that to me changed my life forever, and you don't like it, it kind of does kind of sting a little bit, and it's just like,
Right.
oh crap, like do they think like I'm just another pretentious guy, or like they think I
Right.
just like stuff that nobody likes, or it's just a lot of different
Right.
insecurities come to the head, right?
Yeah. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why it's like easy to be like, yeah, watch Game Night.
Yeah,
That's a
watch Game Night.
fine movie for you to watch.
Yeah, watch Game Night. I always tell them like, oh, watch Elite Squad because they know that I
Yeah.
like what's it called, foreign stuff a lot, like international movies a
Right.
lot.
Right.
So I was like, oh, watch Elite Squad, or I don't
Yeah. It's a
know.
police action movie.
Yeah, like you're gonna like it. Like it's called. But I'm not gonna give you Stalker. Like I'm not gonna make you sit through Stalker. It was like, yeah. I had a coworker who like looked at it and he goes, oh, because this looks really interesting, man. But he's like really starting to kind of get a little bit serious about movies. He's
Okay.
not
Okay.
entirely like looking into joining the filmmaking side of making movies, but he really does like movies because he's like taking a cinema appreciation course. So I was like, hey man, this is a movie that like I really like a lot, and it's a movie that changed my life forever. But here, if you want to watch it, you can watch it. But I told him, I think you should approach this movie when you feel like you're ready, because it's really long and it's also not the easiest movie to understand. So just approach this when you're ready, and then watch it. And he's like, okay, okay. So we'll see how
Yeah.
that
Give.
goes.
I. But I will say, Police Story is probably a good movie to recommend
Oh
those types
yeah,
of people.
100%. I would honestly, I think I would recommend somebody watch Police Story. Um, Like these police movies. Like I think I'd tell him like, hey, do a double feature of Police Story and Elite Squad.
Yeah.
But yes, Patrick chose Police Story, and I want to call the. We're gonna go ahead and get into all of this stuff, but before we can get into any of that stuff, I do want to thank you all so much for the love on the episodes. We have been doing pretty good here at keeping up to the schedule and being able to record these. And like I told everybody, I've kind of been bulk recording these episodes, so I don't know exactly when this drops or when it's going to be available for the public. I know that once I get this edited, it goes up to the patrons like Patrick here, uh, months early before anybody else gets it. So right now, I'm just really happy that you all have been enjoying this, and I'm really happy that I've been doing this for again because, like I said online, I think that this podcast is one of the most fulfilling podcasts that I do. It is the most prep. What's it called? Prep. Like I do so much prep for this podcast. Like it's crazy. I don't read the criterion essays for my physical media reviews, y'all, but I read it for this podcast. So that should tell you something. I
I
do a
mean,
lot of
your
prep for
notes were
this.
pretty good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So like but I tried my best. I tried my best. So like I said, just thank you all so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you all for following along with the season. I know that it was on hiatus for a while, but we're getting back into the groove of things. We've had 5 episodes before this one already up, so let's get ready, man. This movie is directed by Jackie Chan himself, and we have never talked about the filmmaker Jackie Chan. So I have an introduction for you all about Mr. Jackie Chan, and I'm going to go ahead and get into it right here, right now. Jackie Chan was born on April 7, 1954. Chan's parents were political refugees from the Chinese Civil War. Around 1937, his father worked as a secret agent to Lieutenant General Dai Li, who was the chief spy at the time. I will also remind you all, I do not know. That's a Cantonese name, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If he's from Hong Kong, they were speaking Cantonese in the movie.
yeah. I don't know Cantonese. I only know how to pronounce Wang Gawai, Wang Kar Wai's name, and that's because of the incredible Daisuke Beppu on YouTube, who when he did his like overview on the world of Wang Kar set, he actually said his name correctly, and I was like, oh shit, now I know how to say his name. But I do not know how to say any of these names, y'all. So sorry if I butcher them really badly, which I will. Chan's father feared being arrested by the Chinese Communist Party at the time, so he lied and changed his surname from Fang to Chan. Jackie Chan was pulled out of school after failing his first year of school. His parents emigrated to Canberra, Australia, where his father worked as a cook at the American Embassy. Jackie Chan, on the other hand, was sent to the China Drama Academy, where he excelled at martial arts and acrobatics. He became part of the Seven Little Fortunes, which was a performance group made up of the best students in the academy. There he met his friends and fellow Three Dragons, Samon Hung and Yuan Biao. Chan had small roles as a young child actor and even appeared in the Bruce Lee films Fist of Fury as an extra and stunt double. He then appeared in another Bruce Lee film thanks to Sammo Hung, while Chan offered him as a role in a Lo-Wei film where the director decided to mold him after Bruce Lee. And I forgot to put it there, but the next film that he actually appeared in for Bruce Lee was Enter the Dragon. The film was unsuccessful due to Chan not being accustomed to Bruce Lee's fighting style. In 1978, he makes his major breakthrough role with Snake in the Eagle's Shadow. And that same year, he was propelled to mainstream success with Drunken Master. By 1985, Jackie Chan became Hong Kong's biggest action movie star. He reached international fame with the Rush Hour franchise, where he became a Hollywood movie star. 2012, he decided to take a step back from acting to protect his body more and not take on many stunts. He has two films planned to be released this year. And fun fact, y'all, one of them is alongside the 16-time world champion, baby, John Cena.
John Cena.
Yep. I also, there's a lot more that I'm missing there. There's a lot of
Right.
stuff, but it would have been a really long intro for y'all. Um,
I mean, he has had a 50-year career.
really
I
long
will say
career.
what I would say. He said retired from action movies, which isn't necessarily true if you look at
No, because the
his movie
foreigner.
output
Yeah.
since then,
Yeah.
with movies like Kung Fu Yoga, which
Yeah.
I've watched in theaters.
And then isn't the foreigner an action film too?
Yeah, The Foreigner is an action film, but I think he means like more like very much stunt heavy, because if you do watch
Mm.
his more recent output, there's kind of it kind of deviates from the tactile nature of Police Story and more into CGI type
Yeah.
action.
Yeah. Also, I also did not what's it called? Put down that Jackie Chan has also had like a major shift in his politics.
Yes.
That people like
Ugh.
don't like to bring up all that much.
Well, I think it's more like no people in China, Chinese people love bringing it up, but I would say people in America are probably don't care
Don't
about
care.
how he
Yeah.
feels about the state of Hong Kong right now.
Yeah. He like it was really interesting to see how like he was like very like for the people of Hong Kong at first. And then now his what's it called stance has completely changed to be aligned with the CCP. So it's
Hey,
like
as a son of Taiwanese immigrants who are very pro China, I don't know what I can say.
hey man, sometimes we all have to see our heroes fall to the dark side, right? Like it's
Even if it's your mother.
even it's your mother. Yeah, but Jackie
Something I
Chan.
do want to recommend is his time at the Peking Opera House, or not the
Mhm.
Peking Opera House, but the Opera School. There's a great movie that was produced by Jackie Chan from his about his childhood, where Sammo Hung plays the teacher. It's called Painted Faces, but
Mm.
it's about Yuan Bao, Jackie Chan, and Sammo Hung's time at the Peking Opera School as children, and it's really good.
Yeah. So I have never so like hold on. I do not want to say I've never seen a Jackie Chan film because I have. I've watched all three Rush Hour films. I obviously watched Mr. Nice Guy at one point in my life. I just don't remember watching it. Um, but Jackie Chan is one of those people who have like completely broken the barriers between success. I mean, he's international success. He's big in the United States. He's big in. I was reading that he's really big in Asia and Europe. Of course, Asia, right? Because he's
Yes,
the
but
biggest.
India in particular, Indians love Jackie Chan.
Really? I did not read
Yeah,
that. That's crazy. Wow, that's
yeah,
awesome
that's why he
though.
made Kung Fu Yoga, which is a co-Hollywood production.
Yeah, man. So they love him over there, and he's always been a household name that I knew about. I obviously knew about him. I mean, we love Jackie. I mean, Latinos love Jackie Chan, y'all. Y'all are like, it's crazy how much. I think it goes back to the fact that Latinos just love kung fu movies in general.
Right.
Like, like we really fuck with that, man. Like, it's crazy how in Mexico, if you look at some of those channels, like the movies will pass sometimes, like they'll just have random ass like kung fu movies showing on, and like I said, like I always said, like I may not remember some of these movies, but I'm sure that at one point in my life I watched a Jackie Chan film when I was a kid, and I also watched a Bruce Lee film when I was a kid. Like, it's just that case because like fucking Latin America loves kung fu, and yeah. But Jackie Chan, that's his introduction, y'all, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Police Story now because we're gonna go ahead and get ready for this conversation here. So. Police Story is considered one of the greatest action films of all time. Police Story was released on December 14th, 1985. Edward Tung approached writing this film differently than the Hollywood screenwriting approach. Jackie Chan instructed Tung to build the script around set pieces, props, and locations instead of, character motivations, and the way that Hollywood approaches the script a bit differently in that case. Like, we are very much about like, oh, how can we relate it to like the emotional part of the characters and how can we build the story from there. No, Chan just told Tong to just completely build it around what pieces you can use, what props you can use, and what locations we can shoot in. The film contained multiple large-scale stunt pieces that are determined in the detrimental to the film. In the last scene of the film, Jackie Chan performed a stunt where he had to slide down a pole, but the lights had warmed up the pole too much that he suffered second-degree burns, along with a back and pelvis injury from landing too hard. The film was a massive box office success in Asia and Europe. The film would go on to win multiple awards, like the Best Film Award at the Hong Kong Film Awards. The film was followed by 3 sequels, 2 spin offs, and eventually 2 reboots, creating its own franchise. And like I said, y'all, if you all not aware of it, Eureka is releasing a 3 disc Police Story trilogy set on 4K Ultra HD. It is being imported from Europe, but because it is 4K Ultra HD, you will not have to worry about region coding. So that's my nice little plug there for physical media, because this is mostly a channel about physical media. So if you guys want that, you can pre-order it. Go to diabolicdvd.com. That's where I'm gonna pre-order it soon. So yeah, uh, Patrick. Before we actually get into the conversation, why'd you pick Police Story, bro?
Well, I think so. One thing you mentioned a little earlier was talking about Jackie Chan as a director, which I think is an underrated part of his career, and um, as part of kind of like extra context to what you just provided about Police Story, like this whole movie is a response to his time making a American action movie called The Protector,
Mm-hmm.
that he, with his director's eyes on, is like, no, I don't. None of this is working. I don't think this is good. So I'm going to make my own Hong Kong slash American style fusion police movie. Um, but yeah, Police Story for me is an influential movie because I think it encompasses everything there is to love about Jackie Chan, from his obvious influences of the silent greats like Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin, or or even Fred Astaire if we see, or Michael Jackson. Um, but there's influence like that. You see his comedy, but then you also kind of see the hard hittingness of his style of movie making, and I think it's just a perfect encapsulation of who he is as a performer, director, and movie star that I feel like you don't necessarily see fully in a movie like the Rush Hour series, or
Yeah,
his other American films. Like Police Story is everything you need to know about this guy.
yeah. I 100% agree, man. I think that this showed me more about Jackie Chan, the artist, and like the man, compared to like what they had him doing in Rush Hour. Which, like, by the way, y'all, I love the Rush Hour films. I think they're great. Like, they're amazing, man. I mean, like, they're some of the best buddy cop comedies I've ever seen. But they don't, showcase the artist that is Jackie Chan like this movie does. And I'm glad you picked it though, because like I really did want to watch this already. Like I told you, I was holding off until I had bought the Criterion, Police Story and Police Story 2 double set, but that was like, you know, I wasn't gonna get around to it soon. Like there's like other stuff that held
There's so
holds.
many movies out there.
Yeah, it's just like every time on the sale, like I always see like, oh cool. I wonder when I'm gonna pick that up, and I just never do,
Right.
right? And now that Eureka's gonna release the set, I was like, okay, cool. Now I can actually, I want to pick it up. I want to review all 3 of them. It also kind of did bother me that it didn't have like, it was not the 3 movies. I wanted to be like, oh,
Right.
okay, like why not do the 3 films? Like it's the
Well, once again, I
trilogy.
have a rant about this.
But I said I'm glad that Patrick picked this one. So Patrick, if you're ready, then I'm ready, man.
I'm always ready.
Well then, let's go ahead and start our conversation on Jackie Chan's Police Story. All right, so if we're going to start this conversation, Patrick, I think before I get to hear your glorious rant, right? I think we do need to have a conversation on Hong Kong cinema, and I'm sure that you have watched a lot more Hong Kong cinema than I have, because honestly, the only films that I've watched that are from Hong Kong, I believe, are just Wong Kar Wai's films, and right now On Way, I'm watching the films of On Way, and by the way, a fantastic director that she is. I'm really liking her films, but this is the only other film from Hong Kong cinema that I've seen. I have put down Flowers of Shanghai. I want to watch that, and a lot more of the films from House Yusian, because he does what's called interesting. But I think House Yusian is more of a Taiwanese.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's more along the lines of Taiwanese cinema. So yeah,
Yeah, part of the Taiwanese new wave
yeah,
with
yeah,
like Edward Yang and
yeah,
Tsai Ming Lang.
yeah, yeah. So when it comes to Hong Kong, I've only ever seen those other two directors, and now this film
Well,
because,
have you seen the Bruce Lee movies?
like I said, I'm sure I have
Okay,
when I
okay.
was a kid. I just don't remember them.
I didn't mean to put you on blast like
No, no,
that.
you're good. That is also a set that I'm going to buy eventually. I do want to buy the Bruce Lee's his hits, his greatest hits one, because I really like the way that set looks, but also I just what's it called everything else just ends up taking a precedent, and you know, but
Right.
I think I would rather just go ahead and throw it to you then to kind of have this conversation here, because my Hong Kong cinema, what I've been able to consume from Hong Kong, is going to be very different from what you've consumed from Hong Kong, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say to think about this that most of the output from all most of the Chinese kung fu movies that you think about is from Hong Kong. So we're talking about the Bruce Lee movies, we're talking about all these Golden Harvest productions, which if you remember from the beginning of Police Story, this is a Golden Harvest production, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably the biggest studio of the Hong Kong action filmmaking at that time. And this is like the same studio that would produce Mr. Vampire, which is this great um, vampire kung fu comedy. um, yeah, yeah. It's so you get a lot of this like mix of genres where it's oftentimes it's very silly and very kind of like grindhousey. And I think the problem with that in terms of importing these movies into America is that a lot of times that's kind of lost in translation, especially when you do dub versions of these
Mm-hmm.
movies, which these movies often had. Thus, you have kind of like Shaquille O'Neal always does that thing where he does the fake dubbed kung fu movie thing, which I don't know.
Yeah.
It always run me the wrong way. But for Americans, when you're seeing a Chinese movie, especially around the 80s and 90s, you're seeing a Hong Kong movie just because of tense relationships with China at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's why I've noticed a lot of Zhang Yimou's movies aren't available in the United States. It's like
Hmm.
every single time I keep like trying to find like his movies, and it's like they're not available here. And it's like, but
He has a movie out in New York City theaters right now.
oh really? But like his
Yeah,
like
his
old
most
work,
recent movie.
like
Yeah.
everything with like Gong Li in it, like his old
Hmm.
work with Gong Li, like it's not available here. Like I can't
Right.
find it, and I want to watch it, and like it's like he's one of those filmmakers that I'm really
Right.
interested in like learning more about and watching his movies, and like the only other movie I've seen is Hero, and that's because of thank you to Quentin Tarantino who brought that movie over to the United States, right? But when it comes to like most of mainline China's movies, like they're just not available here, and
Right.
but Hong Kong in the other
But
case was
yeah, I will also shout out like other filmmakers like Tsui Hark, who did the Once Upon a Time in China series,
oh yeah,
and also has a bunch of other like kind of genre bending movies. John Woo, of course.
oh yeah, Johnny
Um,
Toe.
Johnny Toe,
Yeah.
of Andrew Lau, who did Infernal Affairs,
Yes.
like just a bunch of great filmmakers who kind of like who because Hong Kong was a kind of a British I don't it wasn't a they're not called a colony, they're called something else.
Territory, no?
Um, territory, I feel like there's a word for it, but I feel like because of that they were also exposed to a lot of Western art, and you kind of see that blending of it. And even Jackie Chan, who loves Frank Capra movies and stuff, he even remade a Frank Capra movie in Miracle.
Yeah.
Um, so you just get this fun meshing of Chinese style that is kind of like more operatic or fantasy driven with kind of like a more hard hitting Western style of action movies or drama.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like why Hong Kong cinema is so like interesting to me. Is because like,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was doing that whole run through Wong Kar Wai's films, a lot of it, like, you can see the influence of like Bergman, Godard, and
Mm-hmm.
all these different things. And it's like, oh, when I was reading up on like his biography, and we did an episode on Fallen Angels, like, oh, it's like everything started like kind of like pouring into here from while the British owned Hong Kong, and it's like, oh, okay, like here's why this stuff started to like really blend its influence into these movies. And it's also interesting to see just how like trends kind of are
Right.
really a big thing in Hong Kong as well. Because like when I was doing that, like he was talking about like, oh yeah, like the crime thriller was big in Hong Kong at the time, like the noir style, and like then like you can tell like, oh, there was a period where like the martial arts movies were getting like really really big in Hong Kong. And like then they just started getting like really silly too. Like I noticed like because the label of 88 films, like they put out some really interesting they put out some really interesting stuff. And there's some movies I've seen that are just batshit ridiculous movies, and I'm just like this is stuff that I can never picture America, the United States of America, putting out, like unless they're like grindhouse films, right? And
Right.
it was interesting to kind of approach this movie and like also be like, oh, I'm also kind of being introduced to a new part of Hong Kong here, because like I'm so used to the very serious part of Hong Kong that I've been watching, that I just had not had the chance to like explore this part of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's that's kind of the fun part of exploring world cinema, right?
Yeah,
It's like both kind of like learning about the world, but also digging into the extra um, context of what is influencing these filmmakers, what is dictating these trends. Like I
yeah,
mentioned before, Police Story is a total reaction to Jackie Chan having a terrible time making an American action movie.
yeah. And of course, I'm gonna go ahead and let you get your rant in here now, because I'm sure that it's why I hate distribution as well to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like I wish with every fiber of my being that all of these movies that you like to talk about, that you would bring up here, that they would be available in the United States. But because of distribution, and usually right when they get brought here to the United States, they're usually fucking like dubbed like terribly, right, and stuff like that. So like tell us here what's going on. What is the distribution here thing that really bothers you, Pat?
Well, the problem is like Police Story, which is a great movie, kind of got lost in the cinema conversation, in my opinion, for a long time. I mean, there's people out there who's like, Police Story's great, or like you have like Edgar Wright being like, Super Cop's awesome in what's it called, Hot Fuzz or something. Um, but people did not take Police Story seriously, or I feel like really talk about it until Criterion released their version of Police Story, which that's a whole separate conversation on like when cinephiles get into a movie or start talking about a movie because of distribution. That's like another conversation. I know there is like
That's
a
a way big that's a bigger conversation to have. And I look, I am guilty of it because that's where I learned about Police Story.
right, right.
But like it's not to say that that's when this movie is deemed important, right? It's been
Right.
important for a long time. It just never
Because it's
reached
been
our
important to a
eyes.
whole country of people.
Yeah,
Right? But a big part of that's also because of who's been distributing these films. So a lot of the Golden Harvest movies were distributed in America by Dimension, which is, of course, a subsidiary of the Weinstein Company in the 90s, which we all love the Weinsteins, right? And so a lot of these so a lot of these movies came to America, both cut down, had their soundtracks re-edited, like they would put in new score, new American soundtracks, and dubbed. And for the longest time, you cannot get a lot of great Jackie Chan movies, the prime of Jackie Chan's careers, to this day without seeing the Dimension dubbed version. So movies like Project A, um, or um, or the Operation Condor series, which is Jackie Chan's Indiana Jones type series that he directed, or did he direct? I'm not sure. But he definitely was involved in the making of it. So movies like Armor of God and things like that, the Operation Condor movies,
hmm
or even like Rumble in the Bronx, which is a big hit in the United States. I mean, the dubbed is done by Jackie Chan, but you can't get the original Cantonese version anywhere, and that's because of Dimension having the rights to these movies, releasing it to theaters in this way, and that's why I'm sure Mr. Nice Guy is dubbed that you have home because that's probably a Dimension release. So every time you, even when you go on iTunes to buy a digital copy, or if it's on HBO Max, let's say, you're getting the dub version of Mr. Nice Guy or First Strike or
yeah,
these movies, and it's really disheartening because I think right now the conversation around Jackie Chan for American cinephiles is around Police Story. But how great would it be if they really discover something like Project A, which is a 1930s um, kind of like crime thriller where it's even more Buster Keaton in that movie. Um, or like there's a new Indiana Jones coming out. How cool would it be to really see Operation Condor, Armor of God for the first time in those ways? But
yeah,
right now, unless you get a bootleg version or a region free copy somewhere, you're not able to get a canted original soundtrack version of these movies. Or or if you do, you don't have the English subtitles to help you watch it because you still need English subtitles. That's fine.
yeah,
That's how movies should be watched.
yeah.
But
And
hopefully it's getting better.
I I know that here we go. I brought it up here. They have a Shout Select has a Jackie Chan collection coming up that they're going to be releasing from 1983 to 1993, uh, and it has Winners and Sinners
Great movie.
with the Cantonese DTS HD
Hmm.
Master Audio Mono track, Wheels on Meals with the Cantonese
Also
track,
a great movie. That's a Sammo Hung movie.
The Protector. Isn't that the one that you're talking
That's
about?
yep.
But they also have a Hong Kong cut of that movie. Yeah.
Hmm.
Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars with the Cantonese track on it. Armor of
Yeah, that's been
God.
a common one. Oh, there
Armor
we
of
go. So
Armor
thank
of
goodness,
God.
Armor of God.
Cantonese track on that one as well. Armor of God 2, Operation Condor. Cantonese
Hmm.
track on that one too. Crime Story, Cantonese track on that one. And City Hunter with the Cantonese track as well. Yeah. So, hey man, it's changing. That's the good thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I gotta what's it called? Put that down because I actually want to pick that up. I need to pick that up. Um, so in hey man, I will tell you this that is pretty much how it kind of goes for these Mexican films as well, and
Right.
it's sad, and it's sad. And honestly, I would not be surprised if it all goes back to fucking Harvey Weinstein
Yeah.
because he
I mean, I know.
loved to cut those movies down.
Yeah. I remember there's the story about the release of this movie called Iron Monkey, which is this Donnie Yen movie from the 90s.
Yeah,
And Quentin Tarantino literally had to yell at Harvey Weinstein because it was like one of his favorite movies of that year to get it released. And if anything, the Weinstein Company in the late 2000s started like kind of amending some of these things by having a label called Dragon Dynasty that was releasing some of these movies with their original Cantonese tracks.
Yeah,
So there's that. If we want to
yeah.
give the Weinstein Company any credit,
That's something that I'm not going to be indulging here. So, yeah, and they're he's guilty of it. I mean, that's why Kevin Smith's Dogma, just won't manage to be released. There's also like a bunch of stuff there, and I know that he had to be threatened by Miyazaki himself to not cut down
right?
his release of Princess Mononoke, and then Bong Joon-ho had to like lie to what's it called to Harvey
Harvey,
Weinstein and tell him that his father was a carpenter and that's why he needed that specific scene in the movie to not be cut down. And
right?
be like, his father was a carpenter. I'm sorry, wait, no, he wasn't a carpenter. He was a fisherman, and that's why he did what's it called.
Right.
It was like, no, he wasn't a fisherman. He was a fucking carpenter. Like,
So, if anything that you take away from this episode is that the cinema condition does not approve of Harvey Weinstein.
no, it doesn't. And also the nerdcore, everything I work on, it does not approve of Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, and I'm glad that distribution is changing though, and like you're seeing like more of an outpour of these films coming out with their original Cantonese tracks, and I hope that
Mhm.
that's going to happen for more years to come because like the more we get exposed to, the better our output and like our input in I'm sorry our look into film is, right. And when you have
Right.
distributors who care about putting the movies out as they originally are intended and not just making a buck off of it, then you get stuff that it feels like it's respectful to the people that originally saw these films.
Right. And the next step is also take some of these films more seriously.
Exactly, yeah. And like you said, like yeah, it kind of sucks that Police Story just got into the conversation because of Criterion. But like, hey, at least Criterion has the decency to put it out with the original Cantonese track, and they're not giving you a
Right.
dub. And like they give you all these special features and stuff, and it's like, hey, like but it is a bigger conversation about like, oh, what's deemed important here when these distributors finally like realize like, oh, these dumb Americans should have these movies, right? Like now,
Or it's not even that. It's kind of like the brand loyalty of like,
yeah,
oh, now that Criterion has it, I'm willing to consume this.
yeah, yeah. And like what's it called? That's a bigger conversation around like, you know,
Conversation.
accessibility to films,
Hmm.
distribution, and all these things. Because like, I know is Shawscope Hong Kong?
Shawscope?
Yes. So those are
Oh,
like
like
the
Shaw Brothers. Yes, 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 yes.
yes. So like those are the big like sets that come from Arrow Video that they've been putting out like all those films. And that's another big example. Like like all the
Right.
Shaw Brothers movies are like finally coming out over here to the United States. Like, and they're being
Right.
presented like like, hey, it's a good thing. It's but that's brand loyalty. It's tribal. Like it comes down to tribalism, bro. It's tribalism, one
Right.
hundred
Right.
percent. It's like, hey, like oh my god, like my favorite company now I care about Hong Kong movies because
Right.
I can watch them. It's like it wasn't easy as back then when you could just like maybe pick up a laser disc or maybe pick up a VHS and you're like, oh, I can discover this. Now it's just like, oh, which distributor is gonna bring me this movie and like how am I gonna be able to consume it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, distributors are messy. They're very tricky, and I'm just glad that now they're being released with the original Cantonese tracks because dubbing.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dubbing.
It's hard. It's like I try really hard to not watch them, and all I want to do is watch these movies in their original intent.
Yeah, because dubbing is so like it's so bad, man. Like
Right.
and it's not even a thing that's like what's it called that is you know only for movies. Like remember in the WWF when they would do that shit? Like whenever like
Oh, like
WCW?
for like Kai and Tai and the
Yeah.
LWO or like
Yeah.
La Parka.
Yeah. Just start parking, I'm sorry, speaking. And like all of a sudden you had a dude like when speaking in English being dubbing over them, like speaking like what the hell, man? No, like that like it all goes back to like, stuff, it's
Like
racist.
xenophobia.
Xenophobia, it's
Yeah.
racism and it's all that stuff. But
And like I get it for children's movies. If I have a child, I feel I might put on the dub version of My Neighbor Totoro just because they can't read properly.
yeah. But if you're a grown ass adult watching the dub version of a movie from a different country, I don't know what to tell you, man. Unless, of
Or even the
course,
fact that
you're of course somebody with a disability, right, who can't see and read.
right,
Of course, like I understand that, but like if you are a perfectly abled person who what's it called, who is abled and able to read subtitles, and you put on a dub version just because you're lazy and you don't want to read, yeah, I truly think you're a buffoon.
or even the fact that the version that most people must be watching of RRR right now is the
Yeah,
Netflix version, which only comes in Hindi,
yeah, yeah,
as opposed to Telugu, which to me is like mind-boggling that people are doing that or accepting it. I know people are complaining, but
yeah,
it's just like a bunch of people have just been watching the Hindi dubbed version.
yeah. Well, I want to go ahead and also kind of talk about Jackie Chan's influences here. You kind of bring up,
Yes,
you also bring up about his obviously his love for Frank Capra. You bring up his love for Buster Keaton. He 100% is influenced by Buster Keaton and all that stuff. Like
right,
you cannot see these stunts and tell me that he's not influenced by Buster Keaton. Like this is 100% like callback to those era of films.
right. Even just the danger
Yeah.
of it, like the the famous scene of Jackie Chan hanging off of the double decker bus with the
Mm-hmm.
umbrella is to me is totally reminiscent of that train sequence
Yeah. The Great Train Robbery.
in The General.
The General.
But
Yeah.
even just like that famous scene of Buster Keaton breaking his neck on that water tower thing in the General. Now I'm saying the Great Chain Robbery
Great
too.
Train Robbery.
the General, the
General.
General. But yeah, it's, but talking about Jackie Chan as a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
It's so clear that his main goal is we have these set pieces. Let's show people the set pieces. We should not. We're doing these dangerous stunts. We're killing our bodies. Why not show the audience? Not even just once, but twice. Or let's go in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's replay that scene again. In fact, in the credits, let's show all of those again
Yeah.
because we are killing ourselves to do this.
And honestly, as a filmmaker myself, I appreciate that about Jackie because it's like
Right.
you put all this time and effort into building these set pieces, and you're only going to show me what is inside of that 16 by 9 frame. That's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I understand. It's like, hey, maybe we don't need it for some of these other films, but like when it comes to something like this, like, yes, show me you running around this whole mall, please, because like
Right.
it doesn't just help the way that you consume this movie, but it helps you also kind of understand the importance that like set pieces like this hold to movies like this. Like, hey, let's use this mall, let's use these buses, let's use all of these things, and it makes sense as to why Chan would what's it called tell his other screenwriter like, yes, build the script around this. Don't put too much importance on like character motivations and stuff like this. Mostly put it into what would these characters do within this location.
Right. And just kind of like the brutality, the amount of sugar glass that has been broken in that mall. But like, so I so one of my favorite things watching when I was growing up was this mini documentary, this like 1 hour TV special called Jackie Chan My Stunts, which shows kind of like Jackie Chan and how he views making these movies and his ideas of filmmakers. And one thing he always says is like, if I'm going to do a cut of a punch, I'm going when I cut, I'm going to do five, maybe 5 frames before it. So it's not an exact match cut, but the cut is going to show that impact more because the brain
Mm-hmm.
takes time to process it again. And it just makes me think of all these American action movies, like the Marvel movies, when they do a fist to fist fight scene of just how discombobulating
Yeah.
it is. And despite the fact that like sure, you don't want to do some of these practical stuff or a wide shot because you don't have real fighters, but even just a simple like, why don't you do a match cut of 5 seconds before the arm starts swinging, just to help us understand how Captain America is punching whoever.
Yeah. And honestly, it's what makes these movies more interesting to me. Is that like there's
Right.
more psychology to the fights,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes it more of like it makes it less of a spectacle and more of the art that it actually is. Because it's like back. it's in the word martial arts. It's in the word.
Right.
You know, it's not just a thing that's just spectacle just to see two people fighting. It's like there has to be psychology to it. There has to be choreography to it that really does make sense. And I mean, it's also why Bruce Lee was just so big over here too, as well, because that's kind of like what his fighting style also looked like. It was very like psychological. It looked like something that was more meticulous than it was just random punches being thrown, like you see in the Marvel movies, right? And it's kind of also why RRR has just had such a big impact here as well. It's
Right.
like those fights don't look like some random like Captain America throwing a punch and then throwing the freaking shields. Like no, like there's actual like rhythm to this.
Right. And even just the fact that he's using Chan is using so many different little props, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's uh a clothing rack
Yeah.
or using a car door
An
to
umbrella to hold on to the window.
right. So like all of those things make it feel so practical because you're like, yes, I can also use a coat rack to hit someone. I can do that. And on this particular rewatch, I was paying a lot more attention to the sound design of just how
Mm-hmm.
great the sound design is
Oh
because
yes.
every punch, every landing on the floor feels like it has maximum impact, even if it doesn't necessarily feel quote unquote realistic. Just the thumps of everything just gives you like, oh man, that guy seems like he really hurt his spine there. Or all the glass breaking, you're like, oh geez, they're really
Yeah.
breaking up this mall.
Yeah. And I can tell you that his influence is also kind of like not just his influences, but I mean just now even talking about just Jackie Chan the man himself. I mean he's obviously influenced so many people now. I mean I got down watching John Wick Chapter 4 yesterday, and
Right.
like you can just tell there's so much of Jackie Chan in there. Just the way that these fights are kind of choreographed, and the way they look, and the way that the speed of the fists and how everything's being done. It's like it
Right.
just comes back to Jackie Chan, and of course Donnie Yen is one of them too. There too, obviously like he's in the
Mm-hmm.
movie, so he's what's going to have some influence there as well. But it's why like I said, like these movies are so interesting because of this different approach, and that's kind of why these movies just became so big. And it's why you know it sucks that it wasn't until now that we finally get this movie here that like people are starting to realize how important Police Story is. But there's also like this side of Jackie Chan that also doesn't get really talked about. Like he's obviously a very funny guy, but like he's also like what's it called? There's kind of some parts in here where I'm just like I don't think he's like entirely trying to be funny. He just has like this like really big aura with his facial features that he can like make with his face. His body language is so good because like that whole scene with the girl in the room and him like
Mm-hmm.
getting like hit with the cake, and then he comes back and he's just like, yeah, I'll go to bed with you. Like it's like I don't think Jackie Chan's entirely trying to be funny. It's just the way that it reads off that's just fucking hilarious to me.
Well, I will say with that is that comes a lot from his Peking opera influences,
Oh really?
which is which if you watch Peking opera, it's a more grandiose style. I think um maybe for more American audiences, it's it's kind of similar to that Japanese style of theater that I can't remember the name of right now. Um
I'm not gonna know it either, bro. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
like the kabuki theater, like
Yeah.
the thing that Nicolas Cage always cites as his influence of his acting style. So kind of like these grand faces of
Yeah.
is I feel like it's more of that theater style tradition, which usually involves face paint. So you kind of need to express more in
Mhm.
order to do that. Also, once again, going to the silent movie influences, um, I think Chan being the businessman that he is, because at by Police Story, he's already is a big international star of
Mhm.
maybe not necessarily in America, but I mean they tried with the Protector and he was in
Yeah.
Cannonball Run. But I, I think a big part of his thinking with some of these stuff is also that if I'm going to make a movie for international audiences, I need to get across these things without words. So I
Yeah.
think he does approach things with a silent movie style of thinking,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to making a movie for international audiences. But yes, he is very goofy.
Yeah, he's so goofy, man. Even then, just the way he kind of like runs around and stuff sometimes, like
Right.
that the whole opening sequence to me is kind of funny as well. Like just the fact that you have this cop who doesn't want to shoot, and he's just like,
And pee his pants.
what the hell? It's like pieces of pants. Like, yeah, it's like I like his directing style is so goofy. Like, and it's obviously
Right.
why he's so good at like translating over like with comedy wise and like the Rush Hour movies and stuff. It's just it's so funny. Like, also I didn't know that Maggie Chung was in this film.
Yes, Maggie Chung is in the first three police stories as his oftentimes hurt girlfriend May.
Yeah. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, I didn't expect to see Maggie Chung in this, but also I didn't expect her to like have such funny scenes in this movie
Right.
as well. Like, and you bring up the often hurt. Like, yes, she is really often hurt in these movies.
Which, fun fact, I think this is Maggie Chung's first starring role in a movie.
Really? Oh,
I
I
think she's
think
been
you're
in one
right.
other movie before this, but I think this is like one of her first roles. So this is before Maggie Chung
Yes.
was super famous. Bridget
Yeah.
Lin, of course, plays the other female lead. The I would say the actual female lead in this, but
Yeah.
people might know her from the Wong Kar Wai movie, Ashes of Time. She's
Yes.
also the girl with the blonde hair in Chungking Express.
Yeah. Yeah, because as tears go by is what's it called? 88. Correctly? I'm correct, right? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yes, 1988. So yeah, this is Maggie Chung's breakthrough role. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And but like it's great to see Maggie Chung get do some comedy and like
Yeah.
it's just a very I think in between set pieces this movie gets very silly.
Yeah.
Oh,
But that's the versatility of Hong Kong cinema, right? I mean,
right,
and it's like to me that's like when I watch this and like I've watched everything that I've watched from Hong Kong right now. It's like why it makes sense like why that like why everything everywhere all at once is also kind of really like all over the place at times. It's like, oh, because it's taking all of these bits and pieces of Hong Kong,
right,
like the super serious stuff, the really funny stuff, like the martial arts stuff, the crime stuff, and it's like, oh,
right,
it's all kind of getting meshed in, and it's kind of like chaotic at times. But even though the most chaotic parts in this film, it's also really freaking good.
right. Even talking about the opening sequence, like it's filmed and shot and cut like um like a super serious like drug film, right?
Yeah, yes,
You have these
yes,
people in the dark den exchanging money. Um and then it becomes a like police procedural about like lawyers
yeah.
about the the
There's
haplessness of the system.
There's a freaking court scene, and thank you. We'll
Yeah.
go ahead and go into the justice part here of this
Before
movie.
the court scene, Jackie Chan perfectly parks a car and does a slide, which is
Yeah,
insane.
and like when of course, I what's it called? I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. When Patrick told me like we're gonna do police story, I'm like, okay. I wonder how much topics I can actually pull out of this, like thematic topics that is gonna be brought up, because I don't know if I'm gonna have a lot here. But I was really surprised at the conversation around the justice system in this film.
Right?
And a lot of it also has to do with policing, right? But um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole court scene in this movie, y'all. I didn't expect there to be a court scene in this movie, but also a court scene that also perfectly encapsulates how freaking corrupt the system also is, because you have the bad
Mm-hmm.
guy who obviously gets himself a lawyer that's a pretty damn good lawyer, but who is also able to kind of get his way and manipulate the system a little bit to make to look Maggie Chung. I'm sorry, to make Jackie Chan's character look really bad.
Yeah, and even with a nonsensical argument like, um, oh, the sun doesn't rise that early in the morning. Are you sure you were able to recognize him like that?
Yeah, and then also of course like the recording right with the girl and um which God man I like it was I hate like I hated like I realized like oh that's why she was doing that, and it's like oh man that really
Yeah.
sucks for Jackie. um But then of course she kind of has like a change of heart at the end. And
Eh,
kind of right.
why she does, it's different.
Yeah,
It's I don't think it matters that much.
yeah. But like the justice system is a big part of this. Policing is also a really big part of this, and it's also, to me, it's interesting how it kind of plays off with like the very turbulent history that Hong Kong has with policing. I
Hmm.
mean, owned by the British at one point,
Right.
and going through like all the atrocities that they've had to go through with that, and then now in like this new time that it's kind of going through in this modern time with the way that the CCP has been, handling Hong Kong, and the way that the police have like been enacting really brutal practices. And in this movie, it's like, yes, I think you see that the police are also really corrupt as well, but also you have people in there who are like, yes, I do want to follow by the code that we uphold, and like I don't want to like really like bastardize this code, but also it's kind of hard when you're around people who are just kind of corrupt as well.
Right. I I think it's very interesting. Like one of my favorite little scenes of the movie is just the scene where the main police guy, like the superintendent of the police station, who looks like a super young guy, who has glasses, and then he just doesn't look like a guy who would be on the streets. You see him throwing darts, and he's missing badly every time. And I just think that's like a perfect little moment of capturing the ineptitude of the the people in kind of like middle management of policing. Is
Yeah,
just how badly they're missing these starts. And then I'm looking at get into this conversation about how, because I do think the character of Ki Kwei comes in this tradition of Dirty Harry or all those Sylvester Stallone movies about like the cop, the vigilante cop who needs to take it into his own hands, who should not be tied down by uh, whatever like systems that is supposed to protect the people from the cops. Like that's a whole different that there's something about that which on this watch was making me feel a little bit uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
Because in a in a way he is causing a lot of people harm, even just in those mall scenes. And we're supposed to like him, and we do like him because he is Jackie Chan.
Yeah, but he's also kind of this piece of shit who's putting everybody in harm's way, who's like
Yeah,
making it hard for people to like just kind of live. And it's like, oh,
right.
you have all like,
And-
just think about like in those opening scenes, like how many people are he putting in danger by driving recklessly like that, like, or like
right.
clinging
Poor
on
people
to,
who are now displaced.
yeah, yes, everybody who he's kind of going through all those houses and stuff. It's like you have all these people who are now like displaced because you decided you wanted to act like a badass and go through every single freaking house now.
Right. And I do think it's funny that the very final shot or the a very final scene of the movie is the lawyer getting his comeuppance, right? It's the
Yeah.
lawyer getting beat, the skeevy defense lawyer. He's the one that gets beat up last because he is the symbol of like injustice, right? In this movie, it's like this could have all been prevented if the bad guys didn't have such a good lawyer on hand.
Yeah, so he beats the lawyer who's like the ultimate symbol of injustice in this movie, right? And I also kind of found it funny how like when he's like in that beginning scene where he gets into the bus and like the guy like gives him the money, right? And he's like, take the money and like you'll be fine. Like and it's like, what's it called, we will forget all about this. He gets it and he's like, nope, you're coming with me. And
Yeah,
he's trying to be like the great cop, right? The guy who does
right,
good but also has to kind of break the law a little bit to like kind of
right.
justice into his own hands, which
Or when reporters asked him a question, he says like, "Oh, how do you will you get a promotion when you for doing this?" He's like, "Oh, well, it's all the superiors doing. They did a great job planning it. It's my people who helped too. So just a humble super cop."
humble super cop, right? And it's like to me, it's what's called kind of interesting in the way that like, yeah, play this movie now, and people are like, no, this fucking cop is a piece of shit from like, because like, oh, he's not outwardly beating us to death like they are right here in Hong Kong at the moment, but like he's still kind of a piece of shit for like putting all these people in danger and like making. Everybody's lives are living hell. Like just all the people that are displaced, like you said, right? All the people in the mall who just went to like shop and now they're what's it called, going through like a freaking hostile takeover, and it's ridiculous.
Or even scaring Bridget Lynn's character by
Yeah,
having his friend come in and pretend to murder slash sexual assault her.
yeah, and also make Maggie Chung's character point a gun at people who are like beating up Jack, and like she gets scared and like almost gets hurt too, right? Like it's crazy. It's crazy, man. Or wait, was that Maggie Chung or was that Bridget Lynn?
That was Bridget Lynn.
Bridget Lynn, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bridget Lynn. So like, yeah, put her in harm's way, which of course Bridget Lynn isn't like, entirely her character isn't entirely like, you know,
Out of
um
fall.
yeah, she's not um innocent.
Innocent.
Yeah, innocent in this movie at all, but like yeah, like you could tell that she's like really scared in that movie. But it, like I
Hmm.
said, it is a really interesting like depiction of policing. It's not like the American version of it that you see here, where it's like, oh yeah, cops are awesome and like they're always have the people's interest in mind. At least back then in what we saw, it's like we never
Or
saw like
even or even the American depiction of like masculinity, right? Because
yeah,
Jackie Chan, who is super masculine guy, sure, but he is allowed to be goofy and silly. He gets
mm-hmm,
hit by a cake 3 times.
3 times.
But like he's not Sylvester Stallone. He's not Arnold
Arnold,
Schwarzenegger, right?
yeah,
Or Clint Eastwood. He's not like this super masculine tough guy. He gets hurt. He gets embarrassed many times. He also steps in cow dung at one point and then does a Michael Jackson moonwalk.
yeah, and it just like makes me think about it like in the instances of like modern times, like The Rock, who has like clauses now where he's like, no, I can't get beat up, or no, I can't lose a
Hmm.
fight. And it's like you look at this movie and it's like, oh, Jackie Chan loses fights here. Like he's
Right,
goofy, he's silly, he like gets like, it's like this movie doesn't really like take itself too seriously sometimes, and like in the parts where it does take itself seriously, it's like letting itself play with like the genre it's trying to create, if I would say so, right?
right. Yeah, and I think it's like it knows when to become serious. Like the end scene, that fight is brutal. It's not funny. It's entertaining to watch, but it's not funny because that's like when things have to go down, right?
Yeah,
But there, in between these set pieces, he's laying the comedy breathe, and I he's really just playing with the form of like upending expectations of what a police movie could and should be.
yeah. And it, to me, it all just wraps up and goes back to just the versatility of Hong Kong cinema,
Hmm.
and like how important Jackie Chan is to Hong Kong cinema, and how he like creates not the formula, but I would say like, oh, this is what we can be. Like this is like we don't have to be entirely serious all the time. Like we can be, and it's like it's important because it gives room for like films like In the Mood for Love to happen, right? But
Right,
we could also be like multifaceted, and we can be all these different things. Like we can have police procedurals, we can have martial arts films, we can have dramas, we can have comedies, we can have all these things that like make up the backbone of what our cinematic language is.
right, exactly, and that's why I also really implore people to watch other Jackie Chan movies, especially the ones he's directed, because I think he really does that in those movies, especially like watch the Operation Condor movies because
Yeah.
or Armor of God, Operation
Armor
Condor.
of God.
In America, they're called Operation Condor, Armor of God, which
Yeah.
is why I always get confused.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, man? Because we have been going for a while now, so I think we hit some good points here, and I think we had ourselves a pretty good episode.
I mean, if you bring me back on, I'll talk about another great Hong Kong filmmaker that also blends action comedy, but this time in a more Looney Tunes sense.
Well, that's where we're headed now. I want to thank you so much for joining us, but you're not done yet, Patrick. I would love for us to continue more conversations on Hong Kong cinema in the next season of the Cinema Condition. I'm sorry that I didn't. This wasn't like a more meaty conversation about like the thematic parts about this movie, because like I don't think there's a lot it's being said here. Like there's a lot being said about police, and I think we've discussed
Yeah.
that to an extent, but like not a lot going on here. But Patrick, what movie are you going to choose and piss somebody off because you're going to take it from them for season 3 of the
Oh, am
Stunts
I
Universe?
taking something from them?
Well, you know, usually if like you pick something, that means that somebody probably wanted that, right?
Oh,
We've
okay,
had it. We
okay,
have instances here where like, you know, I've had some people be like, "Oh, they took that movie. Damn it, I wanted that
right.
movie." So, what are
Well,
you returning?
I really want to pick Kung Fu Hustle, the Stephen Chow 2004 Hong Kong movie, which is this once again a great genre bending movie that has clear influences from 1930s gangster movies um, to Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny. Well, I can't wait to do that episode, bro, and actually watch that movie. I've
Mhm.
never seen Kung Fu Hustle, but like I said,
Hey, it's one of the
you're gonna introduce me to a lot more stuff than I don't know.
there we go.
Yeah, yeah. Because I checked my Hong Kong tag on Letterbox, and I was like, oh yeah, no, it's all Wong Kar Wai. It's all the one on Way film, and then Police Story. That's all. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's go ahead and finish up here though. I want to thank you so much, Patrick. Patrick, you want to let them know where they can find you, man?
Yeah, they can find me on Drinking the Movies. I write movie reviews, sometimes for a great website. If
Sometimes, right?
maybe sometimes it's good, sometimes it's I could put more thought into those. Um, I guess you can follow me on Letterboxd if I don't remember what my name is on Letterboxd
I
because
think it's
I
Patrick
don't
Howe.
care.
I think it's
No,
Patrick Howe.
it's Hoster15, so HAOSTER 15. Uh, on Letterbox, you can see my insane movie count there because I am a crazy person
Yeah.
who doesn't like sleep.
Yeah, dude, like they need to do a better job on Letterbox of like showcasing your handle, like what your username is on there. Because like when you go to your profile, it's like, oh, it's Patrick Howe. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna search up Patrick Howe, and I'm sure that there's other Patrick Howes on freaking Letterbox, bro.
Well, if pick the one that has seen too many movies this year.
Yeah.
It's insane.
9,839 films, and so
Oh,
far
that's
they've watched 456. Bro, what the hell, man? How do you watch so many?
and I'm behind on my logging too, so
Oh my god. I've only watched 64 so far.
I don't recommend it. I
Yeah.
don't recommend it.
Well, y'all can go ahead and follow Patrick on all those things that he's talking about. And also, like I said, Patrick, I want to thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. It means a lot to me.
Hey, I recommend it to everyone. Please do
Yes,
it.
yes, yes. And
It's a measly $5. That's a cup of Starbucks coffee.
yeah, man. And you get video essays when you subscribe to that one. So
Right.
yeah, you have two right now that are available. You can watch. So if you subscribe today as you're listening to this, you can go ahead and watch those two video essays. They're pretty good. Thank you to Mosfilm for finally unblocking my come and see video essay. So that's why it's now
Yeah.
available for y'all to watch it. But I want to thank you all so much. Of course, if you want to become a Patreon supporter and you want to get this episode way earlier than it's available for the public, go over to patreon.com/the nerdy chicano and subscribe to the lowest tier for early access. $5 gets you video essays, and there's a lot of other cool exclusives. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss a single piece of content on the channel. If you're listening to us on a audio platform like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, you know, Spotify, anything like that, make sure that you leave a 5-star review. It helps out a lot with the feed and it helps it show up on people's, recommended. It's all those stuff that we love about giving us 5-star reviews. It helps out a lot. You can follow me at the Nerd Chicano on everything: TikTok, Letterbox, Serialized, Instagram, Twitter, everything, y'all. I'm the same thing on everything. So check me out there. And of course, I do a lot of cool stuff with the Nerdcore, and it's where I get the pleasure of one day going to beat Patrick. We'll see. Patrick has been like pretty nice to me. He really wants to join the network. I don't know what's going on there. He's trying to get in like Sami Zayn, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no. I'm not going to turn at any point.
Yeah. You can't turn when you never won a match. So yeah, even though I'm the exception to the rule, I guess. I don't know.
I think the authorities pushing me down.
Push me down.
I need a group. I need a group to help me.
That's right. And of course, just thank you all so much for the love. Thank you all so much for being for supporting this podcast. Like I said, I'm not really telling you all what's going on next week because it's as I'm recording and as I'm scheduling. So with that said, I want to thank you all so much and thank you to Patrick so much for being on this episode with me. And of course, to my wonderful cinephiles and renowned scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. Catch you all on the next one, guys. Bye bye.